Hello Patriots, I'm at Restored Republic via a GC.R update compiled by Ju.dy. Saturday, October 7th, attack on Israel breaks out, World War III, maybe, funded on both sides by Biden and the cabal. Also on Saturday, California National Guard attacked Marine Corps logistics base in Albany. That housed deep state prisoners headed for Gitmo. The world as we know it is about to end. Actually, the world was not ending, it's upgrading. In 2 weeks, everything would change. The world would soon have no internet for a while. We are approaching that timeline. Get ready for it. The deeper we go, the more unrealistic it becomes. The end won't be for everyone. That choice to know will be yours. Q. Each day is a special day, October the 8th, 2023. Life itself is miraculous and marvelous. Every day has something, some little thing that makes the day special. A bit of beautiful music, the sound of a bird, a cool breeze on a hot day, the thoughtfulness of a friend. The little things are the big things. What if we lived each day as a gift? The fact that God has given us another day of life is surely cause to celebrate. Judy note, on Saturday, October the 7th, as the world faced World War III with deep state attacks on Israel, maybe, plus a Marine Corps base in Albany in a failed attempt to rescue deep state prisoners headed to Gitmo, and while the National Guard was activated in up to 360 cities across the U.S. due to Antifa and BLM terrorists infecting the country, it was rumored that on Monday, October the 9th, the U.S. legislature was to nominate and vote on Trump to be Speaker of the House. It was also rumored that on Wednesday, October the 11th, the Supreme Court would make an announcement on the Brunson case about massive voter fraud in the 2020 election. If they ruled in favor of Brunson, Biden and Harris would immediately be removed from office, and as Speaker of the House, Trump would be made president as if he weren't already. On Monday, October the 9th, the House was expected to vote in Donald Trump as Speaker of the House. The Brunson case on election fraud before the Supreme Court gives the Supreme Court the power to take out Biden and Harris from their positions, with the Speaker of the House next in line to be president. We could very well see Trump as president in the next few days. Loy Brunson. The Brunson brothers' announcement marks the return of Donald Trump and the impeachment of Joe Biden, though it could potentially ignite uprisings. The military was reportedly active in 300 to 360 problematic cities to ensure calm and order during this crucial time. Many of these areas, especially blue states, have a pronounced Antifa BLM presence. Black Monday, October 9th. Incoming, Israel and Hamas go to war just as the US dollar was about to get dropped. Q said Israel would be last. Sunday, October the 8th, as the world debated Hamas' surprise attack on Israel, another unprecedented assault occurred closer to home Saturday, with black hats launching a shocking attack on a white hat installation in Georgia. As rockets fell on Israel, questioning the efficacy of its Iron Dome, scores of federal agents supported by Biden loyalists from the California Army National Guard stormed the gates at Marine Corps Logistics Base Albany, a non-combat post whose mission is to repair and rebuild ground combat and combat support equipment. It is home to approximately 600 Marines and 2,000 part-time civilian contractors, most of whom live on the economy. Real Raw News has learned the base had a secondary function, housing certain deep state prisoners awaiting transportation to Guantanamo Bay Marine Corps Base massacre. Real Raw News. Israel is attacked exactly 9 years and 11 months after a South Park episode was released. 9/11 was a Zionist inside job. Is a military mass notification and military emergency alert systems EBS blackout market crash Starlink ready? I think we are now here at the tipping point. Red.October flipped the switch. Tucker Carlson, you have less than 48 hours. Yellowstone shut down, 340% risk of eruption. State Department breached by Chinese hackers. New York, U.S. patent US 89670291B1, toxic mosquito aerial release system. Now recently, New York City is closing down streets and spraying mosquitoes to reduce the risk of West Nile virus. They are on loudspeaker. The city is applying pesticide to reduce the spread of West Nile virus. Bill Gates in action. We are under attack. Scotland. Major biblical flooding happening all over Scotland the same time Israel declares war. We are saving Israel for last. Very specific reason, not mentioned a single time. Global currency reset. Friday, October the 6th, Mark Z. A lot of my sources feel that Monday, October 9th is our day. A lot of them, actually. They think our day is before that, and Monday is when we start going to the bank. They are all expecting big things this weekend. More chatter on the Iraqi side of things with great expectations for the weekend. Most are looking late Saturday, early Sunday for something from Iraq, some type of announcement. Yesterday, a number of redemption staff told me they are on standby specifically for currency exchanges. Iraq may go on Saturday. Probably what we would see are call centers working over the weekend to make our appointments, and appointments starting on Monday. That's the most likely scenario. Friday, October 6th, TNT call. The whole world will see the RV by Sunday, October 8th. Central Bank of Iraq and Reuters announced next Sunday, October 8th, will be a special day in all Iraqi banks, which could witness unprecedented overcrowding and crowding at cash withdrawal windows. Iraqis were told in mosques a new Iraq will begin by Sunday, October 8th. Saturday, October 7th, Frank 26 RV update. Sudani went and told all the contractors he signed with they can come into Iraq without any restrictions. And that's Article 6. The RV was expected to be announced in sovereign Iraq on Sunday, October 8th, with the new rate becoming international on Monday, October 9th. Sunday, October 8th, Texas Snake. Banker indicated he was expecting notification just any time this coming week. Unfortunately, he admitted that has been stated by those above him before as well. On Tuesday, October 10th, for 12 hours, U.S. Treasury representatives entered codes at U.S. redemption centers for each nation's currency. Pings came back that the code was valid, meaning the redemption center could receive currency from each nation in exchange for the U.S. note in the last 24 hours. Tier 4A had started preparing and paying Tier 4 groups. On Wednesday, October the 4th, Iraq was welcomed to the World Trade Organization with a fully reinstated Iraqi dinar international traded currency. Thursday, October 5th, from Wolverine, Shelton said on his call that the 10 days of darkness and 12 days of disclosures would start after an event. Maybe an EBS test? On Wednesday, October 4th. On Thursday, October 6th, I got a call. Everything has really begun. Isaac has spoken to someone and he says it looks like it's going to happen. All the leaders of the Tier 1 platform have been funded, and by next week all members will be paid and it will be fast. Thursday, October 5th, Tony said he has a 2-hour window tonight and then laughed and said he should have said the next 24 hours. Not every country is going at the same time. It's their own choice. The rate won't be on the Forex until the end of the weekend. Sounds like they will get their 72 hours of joy. Monday is a holiday, so that would be a good time for us to go. Iraqi government salaries were being paid a month in advance, effective Wednesday, October the 4th. Thursday, October the 5th, Bruce. Bondholders Tier 3 will get notification of liquidity over the weekend. Tier 4B will be notified either Saturday, October 7th or Monday afternoon, October 9th, and will begin appointments either Monday, October 9th or Tuesday, October 10th. The U.S. note was fully in the system and available at the bank Friday, October 6th or Monday, October 9th. By Tuesday, October 10th, the bulk of redemption appointments and exchanges were expected to be done. Wednesday, October 11th was another possible EBS date, along with the removal of Biden, and that would kick off a 4-month military action. The IMF and World Bank will hold their last annual meeting on Sunday, October 15th. Starting in the 4th week of October, restitution and recreational allowance will be paid out. The amount of monies paid back will be based on federal taxes paid since 1940s. Interest on mortgages, bank loans, car loans, and credit card interest, along with interest earned on those monies over the years. Those 60 and older will be paid in 3 equal monthly payments for October, November, and December. Those 50 to 60 will get payments over the next 12 months, and those younger will be paid out over 15 years, though they have to be employed in order to qualify. Starting in October and continuing for 3 months, Social Security benefits will be significantly higher, topping out at $5,200. In January, regular benefits will continue, though still be a lot higher. The end of October, Sidney Powell has a date with the Supreme Court to present evidence on 2020 election fraud. Wednesday, November 1st was the goal to have currency exchanges and ZIM bond redemptions completed. The Rodriguez Trust will administer universal basic income for citizens of all GC.R compliant countries. The amount per individual or family will depend on the status, needs, employment level, and age of the person or family, and will work to encourage people to work if they can. He said, "We need to help our friends and family understand that this will happen in the next 3 to 6 months." Starting January 1st, 2024, the fiat US dollar will be worthless. All currencies across the globe will be on par, 1-to-1 with each other. Social Security benefits will be much higher, and the Social Security R&R payments start on a monthly basis. Global financial crisis. Sunday, October the 8th. Warning. Warren Buffett. A storm is brewing in real estate market. Happening now. Own nothing, be happy. AMG News. Sunday, October the 8th. In 1 month, $17,400,000,000 in U.S. treasuries were dumped by BRICS nations, China, Brazil, and Saudi Arabia. The sell-off was impossible to ignore. Since peaking about a decade ago, China has dumped nearly $500 billion in U.S. treasuries. The sell-off in bond markets and the rapid rise in treasury yields have unleashed financial chaos in recent days and weeks. Boom, $17,400,000,000 U.S. treasuries dumped. On Friday, a better-than-expected jobs report added fuel to the fire, with the 10-year yield hitting a high of 4.85%, while the 30-year yield topped 5%. 5 months before his assassination, President John F. Kennedy issued this executive order that would give the American currency back to the people by printing money based on a silver standard, taking away the power of the Federal Reserve banking cartel. Many argue this is the reason that JFK was assassinated. Sunday, October the 8th, bombshell. Martial law unleashed. EBS alerts urgent broadcast and how redemption centers might be our only hope. Deep state arrests. California alone has witnessed up to 8,000 arrests, with over 3,000 in the Northeast U.S., particularly concentrated in the New England area. Rumors suggest that the populace might be urged to stay indoors for their safety, especially during disclosures, while the final arrests take place. However, a resilient and awakened citizenry now more than ever won't be silenced or confined. The emergency broadcast system is on the horizon, and when it hits, it will be swift, silent, and shocking, like a ghostly shadow. Everything familiar will fade into obscurity. Just like the eerie silence of 2020 will be asked to remain rooted, perhaps for days, maybe weeks. The military, it seems, has a broader purpose, as the last of the so-called Satanists face arrest and are sent to Gitmo. The military is also gearing up to distribute food, especially to the elderly. This is not just about control, but also about care. There's chatter about the military potentially overseeing the nation until fresh elections are held, Precisely 120 days post the GC.R announcement, the focus should shift towards electing individuals with business acumen, particularly those who can rejuvenate local businesses and, more importantly, food-growing enterprises. The bustling stock market halted. The digital world you're so intricately linked to, gone. And trust me, when the EBS alert vibrates your cell phone, echoing the chilling announcement, you'll know it's begun. These messages sourced from the Starlink are there to stay. Deleting them, forget about it. They're imprinted, lasting reminders of the changing times. Essentials first. Stock up on clean drinking water. Ensure there's enough food, not just for you, but for your pets too. Medicines, get them in advance. Remember, the digital world is on a hiatus, so medical records are inaccessible. Cash is king. In a world where digital transactions become obsolete, cash will be your savior. ATMs might be out of service, and swiping those cards at gas pumps, dream on. Mental fortitude. When the shock hits, it's vital to keep your wits about you. Before you extend your hand to others, ensure you're mentally fortified. Some might be in a state of shock, unable to respond. In such cases, a breath of fresh air, a gentle walk might help. Your TV, phone, and internet will spring back to life, unveiling a spectacle titled Disclosures. Rumor has it might even grace the big screens, but this isn't your typical Netflix binge. It's a 24/7, 8-hour block broadcast, lasting anywhere between 3 to 10 days. The content? Oh, it's the raw, unfiltered truth of events, spanning military tribunals and even, hold your breath, public executions. Areas drenched in corruption, like Los Angeles and New York, might experience extended viewing periods. But when the switch is flipped back, expect a metamorphosis, a world pulsating with positive energy devoid of evil's grasp. The internet transformed, banking systems revolutionized. This, dear readers, is the dawn of an era of transparency and abundance, a veritable paradise on earth. However, as the layers peel back, revealing covert operations, prepare to be flabbergasted. The faces you recognize might just be elaborate masquerades, Hollywood-grade masks, CGI marvels, and eerily realistic body doubles. Ever watch The Truman Show? Our reality might not be far off, with the scripted drama unfolding since 2015 or perhaps even earlier. In this roller coaster of revelations, identities will be muddled. The presumed deceased might be breathing amongst us under the protection of the Witness Protection Program. Surprisingly, over 900 of them, and those you vilified, they might be mere actors playing their part in this grand cinematic universe. In conclusion, the world is on the brink of a seismic shift. The EBS and subsequent disclosures promise to be the catalysts. Whether you're thrilled or terrified by these prospects, one thing is certain. Life as we know it is about to be irrevocably altered. Prepare to stay vigilant, and remember, every cloud has a silver lining. Redemption centers. Redemption centers represent a transformative process to the Quantum Financial Access Card. This card is the gateway to claiming our GC.R on a global scale, in a SAR for the U.S. funds. And guess what? These funds have already been deposited, awaiting our claim. Wells Fargo, a banking giant you're undoubtedly familiar with, plays a pivotal role in this new age financial paradigm. This institution has mirrored every bank account into the quantum financial system. Your hard-earned money, your retirement nest eggs, your 401ks, they're all securely mirrored on the QFS. Brokerage platforms remain outside this mirroring process. Transitioning into the quantum financial system isn't just about money. It's a spiritual journey. Entering this realm demands purity of heart. It necessitates forgiveness and unconditional love. As we prepare to embrace this financial metamorphosis, it's crucial to cleanse our souls and be ready to love unconditionally. ZIM holders, especially those with humanitarian interests, will be directed to redemption centers based on their zip codes. Nomads, those who live life on the move, should be prepared to declare their mobile status. The redemption centers operate on a rigorous schedule, functioning continuously for 15 days, irrespective of demographics. However, not all centers will have to remain open for the entire duration. The primary currencies exchanged here include Zim, dinar, dong, and the dollar. Those hold significance due to their substantial gold backing. Not all bonds can be exchanged at these centers. Zim bonds can. For those national currency bonds to be eligible, they would have needed to be in an SKR for a solid 5 years. No shortcuts here. The bond payout process is a marathon, not a sprint, spanning an estimated 3 years, but this gradual transition ensures stability and sustainability. Early birds in this game might reap richer rewards. The value of bonds is further amplified as they're backed by solid gold. Bondholders possessing container loads will be at the front of the queue. To put it plainly, a holder with 20 pallets of bond will precede one with only 3 pallets. The bond payouts could span up to 25 years, necessitating NDAs for the same duration. The reason? Distributing vast amounts in one go could deplete funds meant for the global populace. America, with its unique financial landscape, enjoys certain privileges that other nations might miss out on. The rates of Zim and other foreign currencies are in a constant flux, and while many have been informed that a substantial 80% of funds for humanitarian projects will be extracted from Zims, the true nature of this process remains shrouded in mystery. Restored republics. The Wednesday, October 4th EBS broadcast was the first of an expected 6 presidential messages soon to come out. A new 5,000 plus army of Starlink satellites was already in place to take over mainstream media satellites. On this Starlink system, the EAS will broadcast the Global Alliance's takedown of the cabal, showing arrests and tribunals of global elites charged with crimes against humanity. The documentaries have been made in 55 languages and 600 dialects, and will be shown on all channels on the planet. Saturday, October 7th, Alex Collier, audio on Bearded Patriot U.S. Telegram. U.S. warships are currently docking in cities all across Alaska. They're coming ashore to assist the Alaskan military, Australian military, and crushing the deep state. Australia help has arrived. Everything is being triggered for the same time. There is a synchronistic movement of all the white hats taking down the deep state. It's all being synchronized. The white hats are all talking, communicating to each other. I want you to know that we are hours, if not days away from this happening or occurring. And when it happens, it's going to be quick, lightning quick. It is rumored that the Marines are in the process of arresting traitors in the military. I'm hoping this is true because there are some traitors in the military. They have taken bribes and favors and built offshore accounts with ridiculous amounts of money that has all been put in, all based in the Federal Reserve note. They need to go down. They literally need to go down. Canada, those of you up in Canada, the same thing applies. Your military is waiting for the go. All your military is waiting to go. Things have been put into place. There are American troops up there as well. And when this is all over, Canada will become a protector of the United States, the Republic of the United States. Australia will also become a protector of the Republic of the United States. The military is operating under military law in order to protect and defend the citizenry of each of those countries. It is in fact their obligation to protect the people and the borders of those countries. This is going to be something that is going to be worldwide. It's imminent, folks. It's happening. The real news for Sunday, October the 8th, 2023. Ukraine. Billionaire ex-Zelensky sponsor detained for money laundering. Sunday, October the 8th, Q. Trust the plan operation, a total success, population disengaged. Critical intel alert from Derek Johnson. South Africa can be classified as a cabal state. It's the devil's playground, literally. 1920s medbed. There's a link. DEFCON nuclear readiness, SGNON. This is what human trafficking looks like. And new major arrests coming October the 8th, 2023. Great Q video. Hunter Biden emails reveals Wikipedia is run by the CIA. And we have situation update. October the 8th, Israel, Texas both under attack by invasion forces as Obama's evil plans take hold. Mike Adams. September 8th, Dr. Jan Halper. The Navy is doing tribunals on ships around the globe. People are being ferried to Gitmo. Special Forces unalive Obama. Friday, October 6th. Hang him, Admiral Stevens says of corrupt Army Major David Dunbar, but without tribunal. Special Forces unalive Obama clone. And new SGAnon, White Hat update on the military, Civilian Alliance Space Force, 10-4 Delta, Q News Patriot, 5D Grandma, Sunday, October 8th, Sewage, Khazarian Mafia, Israel, Starlink is the Gitmo, Trump, Biden, Trudeau, McCarthy and Biden exit, Trump enters center stage for the final act. Sunday, October 8th, beforeitsnews.com, War and conflict, World War III, emergency update, total chaos is erupting, Lebanon, Iran, Russia, insider information, stand down, Canadian prepper. Deep state spy caught at Trump Vegas hotel. Real raw news. Major decode situation update, Dave. Life-changing information, SGAnon. SGAnon, life-changing information. This is why we fight. This is why we have to get the word out, to wake people up. A sniper from Kaluga about Ukraine, Shukrat Adilov, was one of the first to volunteer and go to the defense of the Donbass. Sergeant Adilov fought in the direction of Kharkov near Lyzum. One thing I can say for sure is that we're at war with non-humans. That's right, they are non-humans. They may look human, but they're not human. And if they are not stopped, and those who survive will become drug addicts and perverts. This is the ideology of the West, and it is flourishing in Ukraine with all its might. Well, it's not the ideology of most Americans, I can say that. In Lyzeum, we were stationed in a car repair shop. When we settled in, this is as bad as it gets. Or maybe it's even worse. I don't know. This is horrific. This is worse than any horror movie you could ever watch. Sunday, October 8th, just so we're clear. Obama is controlling Biden. Pelosi was controlling McCarthy. DOJ is controlling Trump's indictments. FBI is controlling big tech censorship. Zelensky is controlling foreign aid. Big Pharma is controlling media. And BlackRock is controlling all of the above. Saturday, October the 7th, Israel, Hamas, Battle of Armageddon. Sunday, October 8th, Operation Wag the Dog. These Palestinian surprise attacks against Israel are not what the CIA's Mockingbird media is reporting. The events happening in Israel are not happening in real time. They happened a while back. We're saving Israel for last. It has now begun. Phil Godlewski 3.0. Sunday, October 8th, Russia calls for civil war in America following Israel TikTok army. Disaster, Sorka Fayel. On August 15th, 1851, the Illuminati put out a plan to instigate 3 world wars. The third one was between the political Zionists and leaders of the Islamic world. It would be conducted so that the Zionists and Islam destroyed each other. All nations, especially important countries like Turkey, will be drawn into this World War III. Their new world order and reset comes after the war. It starts in the Middle East, but will spread everywhere else. Israel at war before its Melissa Red Pill, Israel at war, Trump clues, Hamas, Israel, Maxwell 17, Epstein Iron Dome. Saturday, October 7th, Israel and Arab Hamas at war. Israel is last. Iran's parliament is chanting death to Israel, death to America, as their terror cells massacre Israeli women and children. This is the regime that Joe Biden just gave $6 billion and a pathway to nuclear weapons to. The money enabled Iran to sponsor Hamas, which launched a major terrorist attack against Israel On Saturday, October 7th, Trump said sadly American taxpayer dollars helped fund these attacks. Spokesperson of Zuddin al-Qassam Brigade's Abu Abadah, we thank the Islamic Republic of Iran, who provided us with weapons, money, and other equipment. He gave us missiles to destroy Zionist fortresses and helped us with standard anti-tank missiles. If you translate this, he says, "Thank you, Joe Biden, you really helped them." The war is needed to prevent the world from ditching the dollar and going to gold-backed currencies, in case you were wondering. War is needed. That's why they need war. Rubik's Cube. As we are witnessing the fall of Israel before our very eyes, we all have heard that Israel was saved for last. We also know that many pedophiles find refuge in Israel, whether they be Epstein, Maxwell, sports, Holly weirdos, etc. Maybe this is the final cleansing of said pedophiles, and the supposed $6 billion the U.S. gave to Iran recently is true, in fact, being used by Hamas all through the White Hats to take the last bit of filth. Think about it, nothing is a coincidence. White Hats seem to have been able to disable the Iron Dome at the right time. And now that $6 billion is used by Iran's proxy fighter, Hamas, backed by the White Hats. I don't know, this is my Special Forces mind at work here. Casper Revival of America podcasts. Save Israel for last is because the adrenochrome labs in the dumps under Israel are 10 times worse than what was discovered in Ukraine, coupled with the fact that there is a portal there allowing the demonic realm entry. Take only what resonates or spend hundreds of hours, as I do, having to uncover this information. Putin has no problem speaking about these things publicly. A high-ranking Israel Defense Forces IDF commander said, U.S. weapons left in Afghanistan by the Biden administration were found in the hands of Palestinian groups active in the Gaza Strip. The chaos that erupted after the #US scramble to evacuate Afghanistan, as ordered by Biden, and the significant amount of weapons and equipment left behind there, has now been used to attack Israel, a close ally of the USA from both the North and Gaza Strip. Iran admits they gave safe passage to the Taliban, who brought the weaponry and is funding the war. Story still developing. Once we squeeze all we can out of the United States, it can dry up and blow away. Benjamin Netanyahu, 2002. Benjamin Netanyahu warns people to leave Gaza as he vows to reduce parts of the territory into rubble. Israel is also preparing to stop supplying electricity, fuel, and goods to Gaza, according to Mr. Netanyahu's office. Battle of Armageddon. Situation update. Iran's Hamas surprise attack on Israel. As the Battle of Armageddon started, Biden recently released $6 billion to Iran, being held as a sanctioned border invasion. Biden gives $6 billion to Iran, and suddenly Hamas launches massive terrorist attack into Israel. Israeli Broadcasting Authority. Armed men infiltrated Israel from the air, land, and sea. And military update, JACO. False flag attacks orchestrated by Mossad have started an all-out war between Israel and Palestine. The goal is to create greater Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. Citizens of Israel, we are at war. Not an operation, not an escalation. At war. Hamas will pay an unprecedented price. Hamas has now launched a military operation against Israel. Full-scale war is imminent. Hamas announced the beginning of a great revolution and called on Arabs living in and around Israel to join it. Al Jazeera reports that the Israeli army has lost control of one of its bases on the border with the Gaza Strip. What are their recent positions? Saudi put up Palestine flag, broke Israel peace deal. Turkey, flipping on U.S., NATO, and Syria. Iran, always against Israel. Iran and Saudi peace deals. Israel will officially declare that the start of war at 1300 at a cabinet meeting, according to Israeli media. The Israeli Ministry of Defense announced a massive call-up of reservists. Hamas has attacked Israel, funded by Iran's $6 billion they received from America. Thanks, Biden. Israel has attacked Gaza with jet planes and bombs they received from America. The war machine in perfect balance. Defense contractors always stay fat and happy when bombs are dropped, no matter from who or what. At least 150 missiles fired towards Tel Aviv, Ashkelon, and Ashdod. The United States is ready to provide Israel with intercontinental ballistic missiles. CNN, the head of the Hamas Politburo, said that the battle with Israel is the beginning of the liberation of Palestinian lands and people. Jim Jordan's statement, America stands with Israel. Israel closes its borders with Jordan. The great Babylon is falling, happening before our very eyes. And we've got BB capitalized. BB is Netanyahu. What does U.S. and Israel have in common? The fall of Babylon. Breaking, the Taliban asked Iran for passage across country to assist Hamas in annihilation of Israel after Joe Biden armed Taliban with $80 billion in U.S. weapons and supplies. Gateway Pundit, that's by Jim Hoft. And Sunday, October 8th, Hal Turner, Ukraine sold weapons to Hamas used against Israel. AMG News. Bill Gates donated $319 million to media organizations over the years. Soros funneled $131 million to 253 media organizations in 4 years. Bezos bought the Washington Post. Pfizer spent $2.8 billion in media advertisements just last year alone. Sunday, October the 8th, Nasara Jassara, Ward 07, 107 and Charlie Ward. Nasara Jassara, 2 plans, 1 true, 1 false. The cabal put out a version of Nasara Jassara that was designed to launder money back to them. The National Economic Stabilization and Reformation Act is the good one. The National Economic Security and Recovery Act is the bad one that they created to deceive us. The good Nasara, number 1, forgets all credit card, mortgage, student loan, and bank debt due to illegal banking. 2, dissolves the Federal Reserve, IRS, and taxes. 3, creates a flat tax of 17% on all new non-essential items. 4, increases benefits for the elderly. 5, returns to constitutional law. 6, representational elections within the law. 7, election oversight. 8, Federal Reserve dissolved. 9, new currencies, U.S. note instead of the U.S. dollar. Euro will disappear and countries will go back to using their own currencies. Sterling silver instead of the British pound. 10, Joe Biden is president of the U.S. corporation, which went bankrupt in 2018. Since March 2021, the U.S. military has recognized Donald Trump, not as the president, but as the commander-in-chief of the Constitution, not the U.S. corporation. 206 countries signed into the Good Nasara in 2018. The cabal wanted to bring in Bitcoin to Nasara. Now remember, Bitcoin was used with child trafficking. The RV actually started on September 24th, 2023, when the pound, the euro, and the US dollar came to parity with each other. BRICS countries, United Kingdom and the US note, have gold-backed currencies and can trade against each other. On Saturday, October 7th, a number of patriots were summoned to Mar-a-Lago. On Sunday, October 8th, Dan Scavino said it's about to go down. All things have been filmed in advance. All things have been completed. They are cleaning up and countries are building while U.S. has yet to be dismantled. These are footages that have been saved to show the sheeple's preparation for the scare event. Think logic. How are BRICS able to do what they're able to do? How are they able to start building? How is Iraq able to go sovereign and do the RV? If all of this is happening, how is Kingdom of Canada able to be sovereign with Trudeau in office? How is Biden able to do the things he's doing? Who's in full control of the media? While all these countries are building behind the scenes, U.S. has to be destroyed for the world to see. So for those that are still questioning or on the fence about things happening, you have to stop bouncing back and forth to 3D and 5D. We're watching a trailer previews for the upcoming blockbuster feature film EBS. What confuses people is that you have to stop watching MSN and then trying to piece it together with the rebuilding of Earth 2.0. It gets cluttered. Stay in one lane all the way through. These are previews playing out for the sheeples. Sunday, October 8th, Captain Kyle Patriots. In regard to accused Israel's last post, we knew there would likely be a World War III scare event scenario kicking off the intro to the public transition to what is to change not only in America, but worldwide, that conditions have become so unsustainable, that worldwide martial law and removal and replacement of all governments would be necessary with no other answer. All of the satanic sites that most don't believe are satanic or just aren't aware that they are have to be taken out, but haven't been. The guidestones, yes, and most had no idea what they even were, so taking them out wasn't earth-shattering to the majority. But what sites would be targeted in a World War III scenario that would shake the majority to the core and paralyze them to a chair waiting to see what's next, as well as keep them more than willing to follow military directives? The White House? Oh yeah. The U.S. Capitol building? Most definitely. Major dams? Remember Hoover Dam. They're always talking about Hoover Dam because there's something underneath it that is satanic. 3G among the leading, without question. And Buckingham Palace, Vatican City, plenty of targets. And all of them could have been hit one at a time on staggered dates and called acts by hostile regions, prompting retaliatory strikes, etc., individually over the last couple of years. But that didn't happen. Why not? I mean, it did look like the White House were trying to wrap most of this up prior to the public transition, right? Why is Israel last? And if the events like the mainstream media being taken over, etc., are not happening in real time, then why the reports from friends hanging out in bomb shelters feeling the explosions now? Think about it. Of all the places we've seen and heard about the accounts of earthquakes, exactly 10 kilometers, not 10 kilometers apart, but 10 kilometers in depth, because they're all the same depth because they're tunnels. And earthquakes usually are much, much deeper than that. That's usually indicating a man-made structure, man-made event. And seeing what appeared to be random hostile acts over the last 2 years, Israel has been generally and unusually quiet. Yet we know the longest tunnel used for gold storage ran between Israel and the Vatican. We know they had a huge network of underground tunnels and nefarious sites of their own where trafficking and criminal activity occurred, but very limited action there. Our complacency with awaiting this as our normal, because of the duration, never changed what the outcome was always going to produce. People need a damn good reason to believe that what's about to happen isn't a choice but a need, not one they're told about, one they need and can see and can feel, and they are. Welcome to the final curtain. Saturday, October 7th, Rubik's Cube on Telegram, Gabby. July 8th, assassination of Shinzo Abe. March 8th, Mar-a-Lago is searched by the FBI. September 8th, Queen Elizabeth dies. October 8th, Crimean Bridge collapse. November 8th, Rothschild dies. December 8th, Twitter file drop. 2023. January 8th, riots at the Brazilian national capital. February 8th, Twitter oversight committee releases election censorship files. March 8th, Georgia Capitol riots. April 8th, BlackRock protests end in France. May 8th, China announces gold-backed currency. June 8th, President Trump indicted. July 8th, collapse of Dutch government. August 8th, Maui fire. September 8th, Hong Kong floods, stock exchanges suspended. October 8th, Iraq RV and Tier 4B notification. When Tony says the world will see RV on Sunday, he is referring to the official implementation of the dinar rate. Iraqis do not have to go and do exchanges like the rest of the world because the dinar is their national currency. What they will have as a benefit is that it will have more value than it had until now. So, once the new rate is established and it becomes international, it can be considered a good time to do the RV, as long as everything that needed to be done is done. So we'll see what happens starting Monday. Red.tober. All the ships are sailing in the same direction now, about to arrive at their common destination in the month of Red October. Buckle thyself up and gird thy loins in proper fashion, and it's going to be biblical. The hunters become the hunted. Durham Revelations. Trump raid, Seth Rich, Ukraine biolabs Nazis, Nord Stream pipeline sabotage, Maxwell's international sex trafficking ring, financial crisis, Biden crime family investigation, Iran deal, shenanigans, fentanyl, drug smuggling, open border crisis, 9/11 revelations, massive election fraud being facilitated by foreign-controlled EMS run by CCP agents, Trump and his team doing even more openly public blatant endorsements of the Q community.
This news story was written by Brea.king. Oklahoma board moves forward with nation's first religious charter school. The board signed off on a contract with St. Isidore of Seville, a proposed virtual Catholic charter school. A state board in Oklahoma on Monday approved a contract with St. Isidore of Seville Virtual Charter School, bringing the institution one step closer to becoming the first publicly funded religious charter school in the nation. The Oklahoma statewide Virtual Charter School Board voted 3-2 for the contract, despite opposition from the state's attorney general and a lawsuit that seeks to stop the school from opening. The school is set to open in the fall of 2024. If it happens, it would represent a new model in education, a tuition-free school with a religious curriculum that is funded largely with taxpayer dollars. The Catholic Archdiocese of Oklahoma City applied to open the charter school in the state, knowing it would invite controversy and litigation. In its application, the Archdiocese said the school would follow federal laws only if they did not conflict with church doctrine, opening questions as to whether it would educate openly LGBTQ+ students. The Archdiocese also said it intended to operate St. Isidore much like a private Catholic school, serving as a genuine instrument of the Church. It plans to lead students to know that human persons are destined for life with the Holy Trinity, but that in freedom, an individual may reject God's invitation and end up in hell, it said in its application. Oklahoma Attorney General Gentner Drummond, Republican, in February warned the Virtual Charter School Board against approving the application for a religious charter school. He said it would create a dangerous precedent where any religious group, not just Catholic or Christian ones, could open a charter school. While many Oklahomans undoubtedly support charter schools sponsored by various Christian faiths, the precedent created by approval of the application will compel approval of similar applications by all faiths, Drummond wrote in a legal opinion, even those most Oklahomans would consider reprehensible and unworthy of public funding. After the board approved the application in June, it was sued by a group of parents, education activists, and clergy members, who argued the school, were it allowed to open, would violate the state's constitution, which requires public schools to be non-sectarian. The state law governing charter schools also requires the institutions to be non-sectarian. The plaintiffs, represented by the American Civil Liberties Union, Americans United for the Separation of Church and State, the Education Law Center, and the Freedom from Religion Foundation, said the state would be forcing taxpayers to subsidize the Catholic Church's mission of evangelization. The Oklahoma State Department of Education filed a motion to dismiss the lawsuit last month. Ryan Walters, the state superintendent of public instruction and head of the department, said in a statement at the time that denying the church's application is religious discrimination. Those who would sue to abridge the freedom of Americans to freely exercise their religion stand against 400 years of religious tolerance in America, predating the United States itself, Walters said. I will fight to protect the freedom of all Oklahomans enshrined in the U.S. Constitution and Oklahoma laws, especially in our schools. Robert Franklin was one of the Virtual Charter School Board members who voted Monday against approving the contract for St. Isidore. He said he believed he would be violating his oath to defend the state constitution if he voted in favor of the contract. I am very concerned about the oath that I took, just like everybody else, to uphold the State Charter School Act and the state's constitution, Franklin said during the meeting. It's very, very problematic and it does not align well. This news story was written by Steve Hendricks, Shira Rubin, Susanna George, Hazem Balusha, and William Booth. Israel declares Gaza siege as Hamas fires rockets and toll mounts. Jerusalem, on the third day of fighting after Hamas militants launched surprise rocket and ground assaults, Israel ordered a complete siege of the Gaza Strip, even as its military was still trying to remove Hamas gunmen from Israeli communities on the enclave's border. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant told the Southern Command that there would be a full siege of the densely populated enclave, which has a population of 2 million. No electricity, no food, no fuel, Gallant said. We are fighting animals, and we will act accordingly. The move to punish Gaza for the carnage in Israel came as the death toll grew on both sides. In Israel, at least 900 people have been killed since the attacks started Saturday, local media reported. Palestinian health officials in Gaza said that 687 people have died as a result of Israeli strikes. In a statement released Monday evening, President Biden said that at least 11 American citizens were among those killed, including many who had made a second home in Israel. That number could rise, he said, with U.S. citizens still unaccounted for. While we are still working to confirm, we believe it is likely that American citizens may be among those being held by Hamas, he said. In a televised address, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned that Israel's response was only just starting. He compared Hamas to the Islamic State group, which once controlled swaths of Iraq and Syria and carried out deadly attacks in Europe and North Africa. What we will do to our enemies in the coming days will reverberate with them for generations, Netanyahu said. The rhetoric from Israeli officials alarmed some observers who called it dehumanizing, while others urged restraint. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres said Monday that he was deeply distressed at Israel's plan to initiate a complete siege of the Gaza Strip. Palestinian civilians are trapped and helpless, Guterres told reporters in New York, calling on Israel to allow continued access for relief officials and humanitarian supplies. About 137,000 displaced people were sheltering in schools and facilities operated by UNRWA, the UN Relief Agency for Palestinians, Guterres said. Even before the war, Hamas-led Gaza struggled under a years-long blockade. It gets most of its electricity from Israel, and its groundwater sources have been ruined by pollution and saltwater. More than 90% of the water in Gaza's sole aquifer is no longer potable. But there was no sign that Hamas was de-escalating. Air raid sirens blared in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv as the group launched salvos at the two cities, appearing to flex its ability to continue striking at the heart of Israel. Explosions were heard in Jerusalem alongside sonic booms, indicating the activation of Israel's Iron Dome air defense system. Rockets also landed in southern towns, including Ashkelon. Projectiles landed in Tel Aviv and in Jerusalem in open areas, as well as on Highway 1, the main route connecting the two cities. The country's main airport remained open, but many carriers canceled flights. As Israeli troops and tanks headed toward the Gaza border, Hamas fighters continued to infiltrate the border and might have entered Israeli territory, Lieutenant Colonel Richard Hecht, a spokesman for the Israel Defense Forces, said at a news briefing Monday. We are still fighting. We thought this morning that we would be in a better place, Hecht said. We still have open areas. I can't say that they're not still coming in. Hecht said it was taking Israeli forces more time than we thought to repel Hamas fighters, in part because of the presence of civilians. This is not military fighting militants. There are civilians in the midst of it. We are doing it in a very surgical way. It is taking a lot of time. The Israeli military said most of the breach points had been secured. Moshe Michelson, deputy head of the IDF for the international media, said Israeli forces have re-established control of communities near the Gaza Strip, but isolated clashes continue as some Palestinian gunmen remain active. More than 100 people were taken captive by Hamas, Israeli Foreign Minister Eli Cohen told a group of foreign journalists in Jerusalem on Monday, Reuters reported. This is something different, unprecedented, Hecht said. And it's not soldiers being held hostage. It's a grandmother, a child, a family, a girl. Hamas's military wing, the Izzadin al-Qassam brigades, threatened to execute the hostages if more civilians were killed in Gaza. In an audio message aired on the Al Jazeera news network, Qassam spokesman Abu Obaida said the executions would be recorded. Searching for ways to describe both the scale and surprise of the Hamas attacks, Israeli officers and diplomats repeatedly compared Saturday's raid to the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor and to 9/11. Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus, an IDF spokesman, told the BBC that this could be a 9/11 and a Pearl Harbor wrapped into one. He called it by far the worst day in Israeli history. Never before have so many Israelis been killed by one single thing, let alone enemy activity, on one day. On Monday, the Israeli Rescue Service Zaka said more than 100 bodies had been recovered from Brea, a kibbutz near the Gaza border where Palestinian militants had seized control. Inside Gaza, residents spent another terrifying night, feeling and hearing the Israeli bombardment from aircraft, artillery, and ships. The Israeli Air Force said Monday that it struck more than 500 Hamas and Islamic Jihad targets in Gaza overnight, including 7 Hamas command centers and 1 used by Islamic Jihad. Homes belonging to known Hamas leaders were leveled. At least 4 mosques were destroyed. Thousands crowded into schools seeking shelter. The main hospital in Gaza City was also filled with panicked refugees, alongside the sick and wounded. The crossing from Gaza into Egypt remained partially open Monday and was overwhelmed with people trying to flee. Internet lines were severed, electricity was sporadic, water tanks were running dry. Most of Gaza's fresh fruit and vegetables come from the farms along its border with Israel. With an invasion, those fields will become a war zone. Ordinary people said they were dreading what comes next, in part because it remains unclear what Hamas wants. Spokesmen for the group have issued vague statements calling for the release of all Palestinian prisoners held by Israel. The presence of both civilian and military hostages in Gaza greatly complicates matters. The most high-profile previous hostage was snatched in a cross-border raid in 2006, the soldier Gilad Shalit, who was released after 5 years, when Israel agreed to free 1,000 Palestinian prisoners. Hamas remained defiant. Spokesman Abdul Latif al-Kanu accused Israel of committing crimes against humanity by killing civilians, and said the international community has double standards when it comes to Palestinian deaths. The criminal Zionist entity is trying, through the war crimes it's committing, to rebuild its army spirits and its broken soldiers and to snatch the fake image after the elite Qassam strikes and its killing and capture of Israel's army and settler herds, he said in a statement published on the group's Telegram channel. Israel also faces threats from the north. Israeli soldiers killed 2 of 5 militants who crossed into Israel from Lebanon on Monday, the army spokesman announced. There was no word on the fate of the other 3. Israeli helicopter gunships were deployed to Lebanese territory, Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, an IDF spokesman, said on X, formerly Twitter. The military reported destroying a position manned by the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah. The Hezbollah-linked Al-Mana channel reported that an empty home was hit. We have nothing to do with this, a Hezbollah spokesperson told the Washington Post via telegram. It's not us. And we don't know if there was an infiltration or not. The armed wing of Palestinian Islamic Jihad, a group active in Lebanon, Gaza, and the West Bank, claimed responsibility for the attack in northern Israel on Monday. Hezbollah later confirmed that 3 of its members were killed by the shelling and fired a salvo of rockets toward northern Israel in response. The incidents raised fears of a wider escalation. Israel fought a war with the militant group in 2006 that killed more than 1,000 people. Rubin reported from Brussels, George from southern Israel, Belusha from Gaza City, and Booth from London. Sarah Dadouch in Beirut, Noga Tarnopolsky in Jerusalem, and Karen DeYoung in Washington contributed to this report. This news story was written by Francesca Ebel. Russia cites concern but does not condemn Hamas attack on Israel. Russia has labeled opposition figures such as Alexei Navalny as terrorists and, since invading its neighbor, the Kremlin routinely denounces defensive Ukrainian strikes as terrorist attacks. But after Hamas militants carried out a brutal surprise attack in which hundreds of Israeli civilians were killed or kidnapped, Russia stopped short of condemning the Palestinian militant group, referring instead to what happened as a spiral of violence and pointing fingers at the West. We are extremely concerned, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said during his daily briefing with reporters. We believe that the situation should be brought to a peaceful resolution as soon as possible, as the continuation of such a spiral of violence is fraught with further escalation of the conflict, Peskov said. In a separate statement, the Russian Foreign Ministry said, Russia is gravely concerned over a sharp escalation of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Russia's carefully worded reaction reflected decades of nuanced, at times contradictory, diplomacy in which the Kremlin has sought strong ties with Israel while also supporting the Palestinian cause and courting groups such as Hamas that are committed to Israel's destruction. But the latest statements, following the stunning assault by militants that prompted Israel to announce its intention to impose a full siege on the Gaza Strip, also reflect how President Vladimir Putin's war in Ukraine now shadows all of Russia's foreign policy, even far from the battlefield. Moscow is now highly dependent on Iran, a longtime patron of Hamas, for drones used to attack Ukrainian cities and civilian infrastructure. The Iranian mission to the United Nations on Monday denied that Tehran was involved in the coordinated attack, insisting that the response was taken solely by Palestine itself. But it also said the attack was unwaveringly aligned with the legitimate interests of the Palestinian people. Meanwhile, drawing a different bizarre connection to the war in Ukraine, former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev on Monday alleged, without providing evidence, that Ukraine had given Hamas Western-supplied weapons that were used in the attack against Israel. Medvedev's allegation, issued on the Telegram messaging platform, came shortly after Ukraine's military intelligence issued a public statement warning that Russia was planning just such a disinformation operation. The weapons handed over to the neo-Nazi regime in Ukraine are being actively used in Israel, Medvedev wrote on Telegram. Later on, like the weapons left behind by the fugitive Americans in Afghanistan, they will be used uncontrollably in all hot spots. The reaction in Moscow on Monday was a mix of high-minded calls for diplomacy, in which Russia put itself forward as a trustworthy mediator, and gleeful applause for the Hamas attack, which was portrayed as beneficial for Russia because it would distract Ukraine's Western backers. During a meeting with Arab League Secretary General Oct.ober in Moscow on Monday, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov called for an end to the bloodshed and implicitly criticized the West for decades of failed efforts to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. There is an urgent need to stop the fighting and address the problem of civilians, who are being victimized in huge numbers, and to pay attention to the reasons the Palestinian problem for many decades cannot find a solution, Lavrov said. We are ready to do this, Lavrov continued, with other countries that are sincerely interested in establishing sustainable peace in the Middle East and ensuring the security of all countries in the region without exception, including the state of Palestine. But some Russian politicians and pundits focused on the significance of Russia's relationship with Iran, and described the attacks in Israel as a useful development in a broader struggle between Russia and the United States. Whose ally is Israel? The United States of America, Andrei Gurylev, a member of the State Duma, the lower house of parliament, from Putin's United Russia Party, wrote on Telegram. Whose ally is Iran and its surrounding Muslim world, Gurylev continued. Ours. We have our own goals and objectives, which we are fulfilling. We have to fulfill our tasks today. Sergei Martin, a Russian propagandist and television presenter, wrote, "This mess is beneficial for Russia, because the globalist toad will be distracted from Ukraine and will get busy trying to put out the eternal Middle Eastern fire. Iran is our real military ally. Israel is an ally of the United States. Therefore, choosing a side is easy." As the war in Ukraine faltered last year, and the Russian military suffered numerous battlefield setbacks, the Kremlin turned to Tehran for supplies of self-detonating Shahid attack drones. Russia's increasingly close military alliance with Iran has alarmed Israel. Israel is not the only country whose relations with Russia have frayed since the 2022 invasion of Ukraine. Russia has come under fierce criticism by Armenia for failing to uphold a ceasefire agreement in the disputed region of Nagorno-Karabakh. Russian ties with Central Asian countries have also eroded. Meanwhile, the Kremlin has tightened alliances with Iran and North Korea, which could provide weapons for the war. Moscow's relationship with Hamas has been developing steadily for more than a decade, with Hamas leadership having visited the Russian capital several times in recent years. Pressed by a reporter in 2010 about why the Kremlin had begun meeting more frequently with the Hamas leadership, Lavrov said that Russia's main objective was to help restore Palestinian unity. He said Russia recognized Hamas as a legitimate political player. We began to meet with Hamas immediately after the elections in Palestine recognized by all as free and democratic, in which a considerable part of the Palestinian people voted for Hamas, Lavrov said at the time. It is not only us who meet with Hamas, Lavrov added, but also many others, including those who classify Hamas as a terrorist organization. We just do it openly, but they prefer to not talk about it. In recent years, Russia's contact with Hamas has become more frequent. Since 2020, Lavrov has received senior Hamas figures, including the leader of the group, Ismail Haniyeh, at least 5 times in Moscow, with the most recent visit taking place in March. In a foreign ministry readout from the meeting, Moscow expressed its willingness to continue to assist in overcoming differences and bringing together the positions of leading Palestinian political forces. Meanwhile, Russia's relationship with Israel has deteriorated. There were expectations that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has historically maintained good relations with Putin, would pivot Israel toward Moscow after his return to government in late December. Instead, Israel has demonstrated greater support for Ukraine, under pressure from the United States to consider sending defensive arms to Kyiv. Last year, Lavrov also drew ire from Israel after he criticized Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who is Jewish, by asserting that Adolf Hitler had Jewish roots, a statement generally believed to be false and which led to demands by Israel for an apology. Natalia Abakumova and Robin Dixon in Riga, Latvia, contributed to this report. This news story was written by Tyler Pager and Perry Stein. Biden interviewed about classified documents found at his office, home. Special counsel Robert Hur, who has been investigating for months, conducted the interview of the president, a person familiar with the situation said. President Biden was interviewed over the last 2 days as part of the investigation led by Special Counsel Robert K. Hur into the discovery of classified documents at Biden's private office and Delaware home, a White House spokesman said Monday night. A person familiar with the matter, speaking on the condition of anonymity to discuss it, said the interview was conducted by Hur himself. The voluntary interview was conducted at the White House over 2 days, Sunday and Monday, and concluded Monday, Ian Sams, a White House spokesman, said in a statement. As we have said from the beginning, the President and the White House are cooperating with this investigation, and as it has been appropriate, we have provided relevant updates publicly, being as transparent as we can consistent with protecting and preserving the integrity of the investigation. We would refer other questions to the Justice Department at this time. A spokesman for Hur declined to comment. The interview with Hur was scheduled weeks ago, the person familiar with the sessions said. It coincided with a growing international crisis, after Hamas militants staged an unprecedented attack on civilians in Israel, killing hundreds of people and taking others hostage. The president also met Sunday with his national security team and spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Biden made no public appearances Monday, but he continued to hold meetings with advisors and monitored the situation in Israel, the White House said. Hur, a former U.S. attorney from Maryland who also held other posts in President Donald Trump's Justice Department, was appointed in January to investigate how classified material came to be at the office Biden used in Washington after his vice presidency, as well as at his Wilmington, Delaware, home. Dozens of current and former Biden staffers have been interviewed as part of the investigation, including Secretary of State Antony Blinken and former White House Chief of Staff Ron Klain. When appointing Hur to lead the probe, Attorney General Merrick Garland cited the extraordinary circumstances of the Justice Department investigating the president as he considered a re-election bid. Biden formally launched his re-election campaign months later. Special counsels have more independence from Justice Department leaders than other federal prosecutors, but they still ultimately answer to the Attorney General. A special counsel not only can seek criminal charges, but also can issue a report explaining the findings of an investigation. It remains Justice Department policy that a sitting president cannot be charged with a crime. Hur's investigation has proceeded separately from the longer-running special counsel probe into the retention of hundreds of classified documents at the Florida home of former President Donald Trump. Trump has been charged with 40 federal crimes and accused of deliberately trying to mislead investigators as they demanded the government documents back. He is scheduled to stand trial on those charges in Fort Pierce, Florida, in May. Trump, who is the Republican frontrunner for the 2024 presidential nomination, also faces 3 other criminal trials, federal charges in D.C. and state charges in Georgia for allegedly seeking to block the 2020 election results, and a state trial in New York for allegedly falsifying business records in connection with hush money payments during the 2016 election. Based on what is publicly known about the two classified documents probes, the Trump investigation appears significantly different from the Biden investigation. The number of documents involved in the Biden probe appears far smaller, and Biden has said that he has cooperated with investigators and handed over the documents as soon as they were discovered. About 10 documents from Biden's time as vice president were found November 2, when lawyers for Biden were cleaning out his private office at the Washington-based Penn Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement, a think tank Biden started with the University of Pennsylvania after his tenure as vice president. The attorney, Pat Moore, found the documents in a small closet and called the White House counsel's office, which in turn contacted the National Archives and Records Administration, the federal agency responsible for storing and preserving presidential records. The Justice Department soon launched an assessment to determine if any laws might have been broken in the matter. John Lausch, the U.S. Attorney in Chicago and a Trump administration holdover, oversaw the initial investigation, Garland said last year. In late December, legal representatives for Biden searched his home in Wilmington, Delaware, and found a small number of records with classified markings in the garage, the White House has said. In January, lawyers found another potential record with classified markings at the Wilmington residence, in a room adjacent to the garage. Biden's home in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, also was searched, but no classified material was found, the White House has said. Biden's personal attorneys arranged for the Justice Department to take possession of the material. Soon after, Lausch told Garland that a special counsel appointment was warranted, and her was appointed. Shortly after Biden's teams reported classified materials at his homes, former Vice President Mike Pence searched his properties and found potentially sensitive government materials. Federal investigators looked into that situation as well, but they closed their investigation in June without charges. Some close to Biden have been frustrated that hers investigation has not wrapped up as quickly. Aides, speaking on the condition of anonymity to discuss the investigation, have said they believe the documents unintentionally ended up at Biden's home and office because of sloppy staff work.